Hi, welcome to Quietly Thinking Out Loud. Today I like to talk about the stories that we tell ourselves. I work with people for decades, and over the years, I listened to many stories. Some were about careers, some were about leadership, some were about difficult decisions. But the stories that stay with me were often the personal ones, not because they were dramatic, but because they reminded me how quietly that our inner world shapes the way we live. One thing that I learned over those years is that job titles tell us very little about what people carry inside. I've met senior executives who quietly question their own worth. I've met young graduates who believed they had nothing to offer. And from the outside, their lives look completely different. Yet, beneath many of their stories, I kept hearing the same quiet question: am I enough? And I remember one conversation that had stayed with me for years. He was an executive, and to most people, he was a leader, confident, capable, successful. And after working together on a project for a while, I noticed he looked exhausted. So one day, I simply asked him, "How are you? You look tired today." And he paused for a moment and he asked, "Do you have time?" So we sat down and he began telling me a story that very few people around him probably know. He spoke about someone he deeply trusted. There was love, there was friendship, there was also a business partnership. And people around him had started noticing things that didn't quite make sense. There were questions, there were concerns, there were signs that something wasn't right. Some friends tried to tell him, but each time he found an explanation. And he told me that he told those people that he knows what those expenses were for. He knows why that happened. He knows the person. And as I listened, I realized this wasn't really a story about money or even just about a romantic relationship. I think the same thing can happen in friendships, between business partners, or within families, even in communities where we feel we belong. Sometimes we trust someone so deeply that when something doesn't quite make sense, we explain it away. Not because we can't see it, but because it doesn't fit the story that we've been telling ourselves. Perhaps accepting another possibility would also mean questioning our own judgment. Perhaps it would mean accepting that someone we trusted had not been the person we believed they were. And sometimes the hardest stories to let go of isn't the one about another person. It's the one that we've been telling ourselves. Then there were others whose stories sounded completely different. About applying a job, I won't apply, I'm not good enough, they will never choose someone like me. When no interview had taken place, no one had rejected them, yet the decision had already been made inside their own minds. And as I listened to more people over the years, I began noticing something. Many of the stories we tell ourselves aren't really ours to begin with. Perhaps someone once told us we weren't clever enough, not capable enough, not attractive enough, and perhaps we were constantly compared with someone else. Perhaps someone laughed when we failed, or perhaps after enough disappointment, we quietly reach those conclusions ourselves. And whatever the reasons, the voice that once came from outside slowly became the voice inside. And one day, we no longer needed anyone else to tell us. We told ourselves. What's interesting is that these stories don't simply shape how we feel. They shape what we do. They influence the opportunities we pursue or never pursue, the relationships that we stay in, whether with a partner, a friend, a business partner, or even a community we belong to. They influence the dreams we quietly let go of, not because life has already decided for us, but because we already decided what we believe about ourselves. I don't think we choose these stories deliberately. Many of them begin as ways of protecting ourselves. If I don't apply, I can't be rejected. If I don't trust my own judgment, perhaps I won't be disappointed again. If I hold on a little longer, perhaps I won't have to face losing someone I love. And at one point in our lives, those stories may have helped us survive, but years later, they may quietly keep us from living. And perhaps that's why I still remember those conversations, not because they were about executives or careers or relationships, but because they reminded me that beneath many different lives, we often carry similar questions. Questions about whether we are enough, whether we are worthy of love, whether we are capable, whether we belong. So today, I'd simply like to leave you with one question. What story have you been telling yourself for so long that you've never stopped to ask where it came from? And perhaps even more importantly, is that story still helping you become the person you want to be? Well, thank you for spending your time with me today. Until next time, take good care of yourself.